Great. So good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Land Use Review Commission. Tonight's meeting is available to the public on Broomfield's YouTube channel. Commission members are attending this meeting remotely. Public participation is encouraged through the webinar by calling 877-853-5247. That's 877-853-5247. You can access it with the ID number of 922-3528-9756. That's 922-3528-9756. Public comments will be taken on each agenda item following the staff presentations. Callers can press *9 to raise their hands to indicate a desire to speak on an item, or webinar participants can use the raise hand function. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Pursuant to section 2-70-30 Broomfield Municipal Code, no elected official or member of any city board, authority, or commission may appear before the Land Use Review Commission when it is conducting a quasi-judicial proceeding. So for roll call this evening, we'll go through our staff first, if we could. Will the secretary please call roll?
Williford.
Present.
Lind.
Here.
Nicholson.
Here.
Steele.
Here.
Carius.
Present.
Good enough.
Sorry. Here.
Weiss.
Here.
Franz.
Here.
That's everyone.
A quorum is present. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, we'll call on each member of the commission for an opportunity to ask questions at the conclusion of the staff presentation or updates. If making a motion or a second, we ask the commissioners to use the raise hand function. Commissioners are asked to mute their microphone when not speaking. We will now move to the commissioners' review and approval of this evening's agenda. Commissioners may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any of the commission have any comments or questions regarding the evening's agenda? If not, we will move on. I don't see any raised hands, so we'll move on. Are there any petitions or communications? Miss Burt, please help me pronounce your name. I am very, very sorry.
No worries. It's a lot of letters. Bertanzetti.
Bertanzetti. It's actually very phonetic, so it's fine to get there. So I'll nail it next time, all right?
Yep, you got it. So not a formal communication, but I did want to let you know, in your email last week from Nanette, we had provided a copy of the bylaws, and we have received a few comments from commissioners regarding the bylaws, so we will put that on a future agenda. If anyone else has comments or suggested changes, you're welcome to submit those via email to me, and I can CC Christine to review those before we bring them back. We will put that on a formal agenda for re-review and potential action on further revisions.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioners' consideration of the minutes from May 10th is next. The commission receives copies of the minutes of the May 10th, 2021 Land Use Review Commission meeting in their packets. Does any member of the Land Use Review Commission have corrections or addition to these minutes? If so, please raise your hands. Excellent. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 10th, 2021 as amended?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay. Will the secretary again please call roll?
Carius,
Yes.
Williford,
Yes.
Steele,
Yes.
Mickelson,
yes,
Franz,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Lind.
Yes. Very unanimously approved on the approval of the minutes. Moving to our business of the evening. Regarding Brewer Acres filing number 1 final plot, resolution number LURC 2021-3. The first item on commission business is for the Brewer Acres filing 1 final plot. I will declare the public hearing open. Moving to the staff summary. The commission has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff, Ms. Jablon, Associate Planner, to summarize, please. And if I
Thank you.
mispronounced your name, please do correct.
Nope, that was great. Thank you. Next slide, please. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Land Use Review Commission. The application is for consideration of a final plat to subdivide an existing 2.4 acre parcel into 2 parcels within the A1A zone district. The application is complete, and to the best of staff's knowledge, notification requirements have been met for this hearing. Please enter the memorandum and supporting documents into the public record. The existing property is located west of Clay Street and is within the Wilcox neighborhood. The adjacent properties to the north, south, east, and west are all also zoned A1A and located within the Wilcox neighborhood. The proposal does include a variance for the establishment of a flag lot to provide access to the proposed parcel to the west. Next slide, please. The resulting parcels will be approximately 1.2 and 1.1 acres in size, which is consistent with the requirements of the A1A zone district and the character of the surrounding community. The proposed subdivision will require a variance from the final plat standards in Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code to establish a flag lot. Section 16 of the code states that the flag lots are prohibited unless, with the exception of approval under a PUD plan. Subdivisions with flag lots are not uncommon in the Wilcox neighborhood. The zoning for the property will remain A1A, which is the Adams County Legacy zoning designation. Next page, please. The applicant has met the requirements of the Broomfield Municipal Code by placing public notice signs at the site and providing mail notice to all property owners within 1,000 feet. Staff has not received any additional communication from neighbors regarding this proposal. The applicant has provided a letter of approval from the property owner to the north. The requested variance for a flag lot has been identified as a key issue. And thank you. That concludes the staff report, and the applicant is in attendance to provide a brief presentation as well.
Thank you, Ms. Jablon. Does any member of the public have comments on this item? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or use the phone to press *9 to call in your comments. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. I don't see any raised hands. Anyone else? Thank you. Just to be sure. Does staff have anyone in queue on the phone for participation at this time?
We do not. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Excuse
Mrs.
me, Chair.
Burton. Thank you, Ms. Eddy. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out, did she mention that the applicant was in attendance? Did they want to do a presentation?
Hello, Ms. Brewer. I believe we have the documents in hand for evaluation this evening. Is that correct, Ms. Burton-Zetti?
Thank you. We do. It is a proper procedure to allow the applicant to do a presentation if they do desire.
Excellent. Ms. Brewer, would you care to make a presentation for us this evening?
Shelby is super well versed in this, and I think she's been working on it with us for a long time. I think she really provided all the information that I would be able to, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for the clarification, Mrs. Burtonzetti. No further public comment. We'll now call on each member of the commission for questions. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mickelson,
No questions.
Goodenough,
No questions.
Lind,
I have one slight one. What is the intention of the parceling of the land for further development?
Fair question. My aunt is our realtor and she looked at all of the stuff, and we've been here for 7 years. And she said, so having been a realtor for 30 years, you might not want to do anything with it now. And we don't currently have any plans. The market's crazy. As you know, I heard you talking about your endeavor,
Yes.
but we don't have any plans. It's a beautiful lot. It has a beautiful view. And so we someday might want to build on it when construction costs aren't so crazy. We might want to sell it. We just currently don't have any plans.
Excellent. Please continue.
Deal,
One comment, one question. I like the neighbor's letter. It was very sweet. So thank you for that. My question is the A1A legacy zone from Adams County. Is there any discussion on the part of Broomfield to review these legacy zones and maybe advance them or update them?
So only the property owners themselves can actually propose a rezoning. We have an agreement with the legacy counties that when we annex the properties, we would retain the original zoning codes from that time.
Thank you.
Franz,
Just a quick question for Ms. Jablin. I know they're going to be able to connect to city water, and I understand it's a rural property, so they won't have city sewer. But are all the residents on the other side of Clay Street also using septic tanks?
I do believe so. I think septic tanks are kind of the standard in this area at this time.
I actually know the answer to that because I talked to our neighbors. On the other side of Clay Street, they have city sewer. It just goes up their backyards in the subdivision. It's still Wilcox, but do you know the ones I'm talking about, Shelby? Directly across the street from us, they all have city sewer, but it just doesn't come up the road.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So the subdivision that has sanitary is called Green Family Farms. It's not called that. I think it's Stella's Meadow is their marketing name. We expanded the urban growth boundary that we have an agreement with Dr. Cog to adhere to, which really limits our ability to provide additional sanitary beyond the limits of the urban growth. And the idea is that we are trying to keep rural areas rural and encourage development to occur in areas where development is planned and appropriate. So the other thing about providing sanitary further into the Wilcox area is that it could put additional development pressure on the area because the minimum lot size is decreased to only ½ an acre if the lots have access to public sanitary sewer. So it would be a very big departure for that neighborhood if we were to provide additional sanitary beyond the Green Family Farms and the lots that are closest to 144th Avenue that already have access. So it's not saying that it couldn't happen, but just saying it's a really big topic that Broomfield would have to consider the implications of providing additional sanitary.
Thank you.
Carius,
No questions.
Williford,
No questions.
that's everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone that has additional questions or requires additional information before I close the public hearing? Mr. Weiss.
Just one comment, question as well. It says that the new lot will have to hook up to the water. As I look at the site plan, the water easement is in the front. Is the water tap going to require an easement to get back to that lot?
So I believe all utilities would run parallel to the access drives. They would be located within that area.
Okay, so that's allowed that access and utilities can go in the same easement?
Yes, and this has been reviewed by our engineering division, and that location has been approved by them.
Okay. The only other thing that as I read through the memo, it seems like the parcel is referenced by different names in different parts of the memo. Sometimes it's listed as proposed lot number 2. Sometimes it's listed as proposed lot number 1. I was just thinking that maybe it should be consistent throughout the memo. And it doesn't appear to be, at least as I read it.
There is a proposed lot 1 and a proposed lot 2, but we will make sure in our future memos that it's clarified which lot is which.
Thank you.
Joyce. Thank you, Mrs. Jablon. Please continue. Is there anyone that has additional questions or requires additional information before I close the public hearing? I don't see any raised hands. Then I will declare the public hearing officially closed. We will now proceed to the resolution. LURC 2021-3, a resolution recommending approval with or without conditions, or a resolution denying Brewer Acres filing number 1 final plot. What is the pleasure of the commission? May I have a motion? Please, Ms. Mickelson.
Actually, Earl had his hand up first.
I see. Mr. Franz, please.
It doesn't really matter. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve Resolution PZ 2021-3 regarding the application of the proposed Brewer Acres filing number 1, final plat at 14641 Clay Street with no conditions.
Thank you, Mr.
I'll
Franz.
second.
Thank you, Ms. Mickelson. Is there any discussion on the motion? We ask the commissioners to use the raise hand function to share comments on the motion or to request consideration of an amendment to the motion. Ms. Williford, you are clearly raising a hand on our video here.
Yeah, I can't find my raised hand button on my screen.
It's
I just
usually
have
in the
one.
bottom center, just so you know.
Yeah,
But
it's
sometimes
not
it doesn't
down
show up
there.
quite right.
Okay. One quick question that I had, we said no conditions. I did notice whenever it was talking about the septic system that it mentioned that it would be sized for a 3-bedroom house. Is planning putting limitations on what they're going to be able to build there in the future? Is that a restriction that's already been placed on it?
No, so at this time, for the plotting purposes, that is the size that we use just to show the area. When they actually do come in for a permit for the home, they will work with HHS to determine what size they actually do need.
Okay, so it's not something where they're restricted already. Okay, I just wanted
No,
to
they
make
will
sure.
continue to work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Anyone else? Excellent. Will the secretary please call roll?
Carius,
Yes.
Franz,
Yes.
Williford,
Yes.
Mickelson,
Yes.
Lind,
Yes.
Goodenough,
Yes.
Steele.
Yes.
That's everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. The motion to adopt resolution LURC 2021-3 has passed unanimously. The second item on commission business is a discussion regarding Commissioner's Corner as found in the bylaws. I will declare the public hearing open. Does any member of the public have comments on this item? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Please raise your hand. Use the phone, press *9 to call in your comments. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Yes, Ms. Bertonzetti.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously not a member of the public, but I don't see any public in the meeting interested in speaking on the item. It wasn't included in your script and I don't have a formal presentation, but I just wanted to provide a brief intro to this discussion. When we were talking about the bylaws, it came up a very simple yet meaningful question of what is Commissioner's Corner? And it was a really great question because I've never really thought about it. It's been in there every year that I've been with Broomfield, and no one has really asked, what are we supposed to do during this time? So I think it's a very meaningful discussion that we should have. Is this something we should include as part of your agenda? Is this something that you would like to have more formalized? I figured I would just kind of intro, and some who have been on the board before may want to elaborate, but I think this time ended up being more of an opportunity to say, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to be out for the whole month of June, just wanted everybody to know, or I wanted to let people know that I saw that the building up at the Chick-fil-A went vertical and we approved that a few weeks ago, and I thought people might want to be interested. It was just kind of a free-for-all of information sharing, and sometimes was a moment of reflection in terms of, wow, item 1 was really hard tonight. You know, hey staff, could you make it better next time by incorporating, you know, pictures of the site when it's in that area, something like that. So it was kind of free form. And I'm not sure if it was something you all have found valuable for those of you who have been on the board before, or if any of you have been on homeowners associations that had a similar part of the agenda. So I figured it was just an opportunity. We had a light agenda tonight to open it up for the Commission's discussion about what to talk about during Commissioner's Corner. So that my not so brief introduction.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to sit back and let the rest of our commission weigh in on this. It seems with that introduction, it could be a valuable tool for us to discuss different things, but perhaps we could use the raise hand to sort of move through a queue of some commentary as to how we could utilize this somewhat fluid piece of the agenda. Please, Mr. Carius.
Yeah, so for part of my dissertation studies, I'm observing public meetings across different cities and towns in Colorado, trying to understand what other groups, boards, commissions, they have all different names. We're a commission, Denver has a board. There are some that are committees. It's been really interesting. And so I think some of the key parts that could really be a part of this is reviewing and thinking about our processes and procedures. For example, last week, Tuesday, I was listening into the planning board meeting for the city of Denver from 3 till, I don't know, like 8 p.m. It was like 7 p.m. It was a very long meeting. And it wasn't really that long because of their business items. It was long because they were debating the criteria around which they evaluate the items that come before them. In particular, they had an item come up, one of their criteria that they've used for a number of years, which I believe is more connected to kind of like an engineering standard or an architectural standard of public health, safety, and welfare. And all the commissioners were completely confused, and almost none of them had an answer for what that actually meant for when they're evaluating projects, which to me as a dissertation student, that's fascinating. That's kind of what I'm looking for is when I'm studying health. So I wonder if, there's a few items I can think of directly. Bylaws should be a part of this process. Anything that commissioners would like to bring up that's business items for us to discuss as a group. So that could be procedural matters, that could be bylaws, that could be Robert's Rules of Order, and just, how do we make meetings very efficient? I think kind of those 3 items I could see as the most common areas where anybody could essentially email Nanette and be like, can we add this discussion to the agenda? And I would say it would be beneficial to have the chair decide on kind of a time limit for those types of discussions. Open-ended discussions are a little tough. So I think, having a time limit approved by the chair when it's added to the agenda and having seen that ahead of time can be really beneficial. In my time in student government, CU, I know it sounds small scale, but we also spend about 5 hours a week in meetings usually. And that's because many of our open-ended discussions don't have very hard limits. And so they can go on for very long periods of time. And so I think a pre-established agenda time limit for these types of items that's decided upon by the chair and Anna based upon what they know and think would be beneficial could be a way to use that section. Another one would be kind of like what Anna talked about, which are just general updates or reports. Sometimes just checking in on different projects or getting an update about where a project is at. I've been flipping through the documents from the city of Broomfield, particularly the map that you've all built with all the different concept reviews, approved projects across the city of Broomfield. And I've noticed that there's a number of projects that I've seen have either gone through approval processes, gone through concept reviews, but I don't really know what stage they're at. Even some of the projects that we've approved where, I've seen some we've approved and it's gone up the same week. And then there are others that are still sitting there. And I kind of wonder about those projects and about what's kind of going on with them. And if there's a better way we can stay informed as commissioners, because as I've been getting back out in public, I think more people knowing what I study and knowing our participation on the board, citizens are curious. How's that park development coming? I heard you recently approved an apartments project nearby our neighborhood. And I just don't know how many of these things are coming along. I think it would be really helpful if we could just get a small update on some of the previous projects that have either come before our time or things that we've approved and see if they're moving forward. So those are some of the ideas I had when I was thinking about this little commissioner's corner.
Ms. Burton-Zetti, could you speak a little bit to the updating of sort of the ongoing database of project status? Is that something that's within the city's purvey? Once the project is approved, that lies much more so with the developer and builder. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's one reason that we started the online map. Sometimes there isn't an update for a long period of time, and we might not even know why. It might be funding, or it might be that there's a sale pending, or we have a project in Interlaken where the builder just has too many projects going and wants to wait another year because they think the market will be better in a year. So they fully intend to move forward. It is tough for us to know, I guess, where the information, it would be helpful for us to have guidance from the commission about what information you are seeking. So we might have 50 projects going through various stages, so it'd be too much to go through. But if you're just interested in what permits, major permits might have been issued in a month, we could certainly provide that, or just go through key milestones of something. But probably just for the largest of the projects, since
of course. Mr. Karras, does sort of a quick reading or issuance, even if it's just within our preparatory memorandum. Sorry, I have 2 giant bears who are barking at a friend who just arrived. But even though sitting behind a closed door, would something like permit issuances or something like that help facilitate a conversation to the community a little bit? I personally think that would be highly beneficial for us to understand, although the issuance of permits are also somewhat public records, so with a little bit of extra digging that could be found out. But it would be great to have a consolidated source so that I just worry about a bit of an undue burden on staff to compile all that information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particular about it. I was more just saying, like, in general, I thought maybe this is an area for us to explore as a way to be, informed and make sure we're making the most informed decisions as possible. Obviously, I don't want to take up more of staff's time. But if there's anything out there, I think it would be beneficial for the public to get updates. And all of our meetings are public records and everything, and so it's beneficial just to have that information out there and talk about what's pertinent to the community, what should be pertinent to us when we're commissioners, and what is relevant to citizens of Broomfield on a regular basis. So it could just be an executive update from Anna, our director and chief, just giving an update on all the things she's experienced.
Great, thank you. Mr. Franz, you had a comment?
Yes, I just want to appreciate what Jake said. And Jake, I have to ask you, because I'm never quite sure if your last name is pronounced Carius or Carius, which is correct.
It's Carius. I got the Americanized Spanish last name.
Got it. And I just want to say, I appreciate it. The only part of this you're doing as a student, listening to some of these other boards, commissions, city councils, and so forth. But it's good that you bring some of that to us, because we get a different perspective that we don't always hear. So certainly appreciate that information. My only question is really to Anna, and it's come up before, Anna, and you brought it up, is as a land use review committee, can we ever approve a project but disapprove the location of that project?
Commissioner Franz, no, you cannot.
Okay, so it's approved, or not, it's approved in that particular location.
Yes, all of your applications are site specific to a particular property.
Okay, so if we object to the site, we vote no for the project.
That's correct. The only reason I hesitated at all is that your role with concept review, you would be able to share during concept and early stage. The chairman was actually kind of reviewing what happened last week, was that there was support for a project, but not in the location at the concept stage. And you are certainly welcome to share those thoughts during a concept. If that plan were to move forward and be considered by the board, it would be that project in a specific location.
Understand. Thanks, Anna.
Ms. Franciscani, I am very, very sorry. I'm horrible with Italian-oriented names, if I'm even getting that correct. I'm German, so we...
Oh, that was perfect. Also been Americanized. It's Franciscani. The discussion you all are having reminded me of something that I hadn't previously addressed, which is not only is there potentially an issue with, well, really there is an issue with discussing a project while it's pending before you've heard it, but there is a 28-day appeal period after your approval as well. And I just hadn't thought about that until you were talking about getting updates. So, they're called 106 appeals. They're very uncommon. Broomfield, I think, has not seen any in a really long time. And they would only be in the case of if someone was suggesting that there was like no evidence for your decision at all. So just a heads up, I understand, talking with friends and loved ones about what you've been up to. But definitely if there's any sort of potential party in interest, please do your best not to talk with them about it.
So we're essentially under a non-disclosure type of agreement for the period of 28 days following our evaluation. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's stronger than I would put it. It's just that it's because it can be still appealed, then anything that a commissioner says about it could be alleged as worthy of being evidence in the appeal case just during that 28 period after your decision. And for the most part, that will apply to the decisions that you make that are final. There's less of an issue with the decisions that you make that are recommendations.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification on that. Ms. Steele, please.
Thank you. I changed my skin tone so that my hand was a little more visible. To respond to Jake's earlier comment, states provide licensure for disciplines or professions that cover public health, safety, and welfare. And the three primary ones are medicine, law, and architecture. So that's why that comment came up. Public health, safety, and welfare is a standard line. Not only do we sit as architects for the architecture review exams, but then we also have mandated continuing education every year, credits that we need to accumulate so that we stay current in the interest of the public's health.
Thank you very much for that clarification. It was a poignant moment there that it certainly ticked in my head as a licensed professional as well. Thank you. Ms. Mickelson, please.
Christine, quick question on what you just said. Is the appeal process part of the applicant, the neighborhood? You know, who's if they dislike our decisions, who's putting up the appeal? Because I'm trying to figure out, you know, is it a bunch of neighbors banding together saying, I don't like the fact that they approved this, or is it the applicant saying they disapproved it and I don't like the fact that they disapproved it, because they're not likely to put up a fuss unless we approved it with conditions that they didn't like?
That is a very good question. Hopefully my connection is okay. I accidentally hung up my phone. Good. So I am finding the rule of civil procedure. So it's an appeal to the district court. So, you know, we have in Broomfield, municipal court, county court, district court. And let's see.
While you look that up, I'm just going to add on that even if we weren't talking about a 106 appeal, there is still potentially an appeal that an applicant could make to essentially call up the application to City Council. So if the commission denied an applicant and they would like further consideration, they can appeal your decision and ask for a hearing with City Council. And so at least, you know, that's also within that same 28 days. The appeal period is 15 days. So just figured I would mention there is still that formal appeal. So it's different than a 106. There might have been nothing procedurally that you they're trying to claim you did wrong. It's just they didn't like the decision. They want further consideration. Similarly, the City Council, for any reason, can call up a decision of the Land Use Review Commission within that 15 days. And again, procedurally, nothing has to have been wrong. They just can desire an additional hearing. So, and that's all within that 28 days.
Thanks, Anna. And I'm still getting the procedures, especially the new ones, assimilated. So with a 106 appeal, and you know, I haven't actually done one. As far as I understand, at the outset, kind of anyone could bring it, because the claim is that, let's see, the government body, so you guys would have exceeded your jurisdiction or abused your discretion, and then following that, for the person who says they've been affected, there's no plain, speedy, and adequate remedy otherwise provided by law. So, you know, I think in these situations when something like that does happen, like if a neighborhood group bands together, there is probably legal briefing on whether it's an appropriate place for someone who has actually nothing to do with the project to be complaining about it. You know, like whether or not someone has standing. And Anna might know more about it than I do, but I think that's you know, that's where a local government will go when they're defending their board, is to say whether or not the person who's brought the lawsuit actually has a basis to have any sort of problem with it.
Thanks, Christine. The reason I was asking is just last week when my neighbors noticed, so, you know, I live relatively close to the Dillon Point property. And you know, they started on the removal of the dead trees, and one of my neighbors brought that up and was in a fuss. And I was like, nope. There was a study it was done, identified what trees were alive, which trees were dead, and I went down basically, a summary of what was covered during our meeting regarding the trees. And I'm like, do I have to now go, how long ago did we have that meeting before I can talk about whether
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I know, but sometimes when you're sitting here in front of the same computer, it doesn't seem that long ago.
Yeah, you're good.
But for anyone else who's driven by that property, a lot of analysis was put into which trees were savable, which trees were not, and how the ones they could save could be incorporated into the design. So it was very thought out, even though it's kind of shocking to look at. Molly's like, I drove by. Come off mute, Molly. Come off mute, Molly.
I drive by there often, and I'm familiar with the background of Dillon Point. And my daughter, who lives near there, said, "Mom, they've started construction." I'm so glad you brought that up. And now I can say, no, they're just taking out dead trees.
The construction won't be far behind, but I'm sure. But yeah, the dead trees, you can say a lot of effort was put in to identify which ones were old and diseased, and a risk, and which needed to go.
With lumber prices, maybe everybody.
Lumber prices, they're just selling off those big pieces of cottonwood.
Mr. Weiss, I see you have your hand raised, please. We have you muted at the moment, sir.
Couldn't come off mute. There I am.
There you go.
Talking about trees, I don't know if you'd find this interesting or not, but at Anthem Ranch, our common area committee has GPS locations for each one of our 5,530 trees. And they've come up with a 19-page strategic plan how to maintain those trees and which ones need to be removed on an annual basis.
Wow.
Getting your HOA money worth up there, right? Excellent. Does anybody else have any comments in regards or discussion further pending Commissioner's Corner?
Okay, I had one other question on the review, on the appeal process. What part does our commission play in that review process? If we approve the project and somebody takes it under appeal and it goes before City Council, what part, if any, do we play in that process?
That's a great question, Commissioner. You would not be involved in the hearing. All of the evidence from the hearing would be brought forward. So council would have access to the meeting minutes, the meeting recording, and the staff memorandum, and staff prepares a summary of what occurred as well. So there's multiple things that are forwarded to council, and then they hold their own new public hearing. So we enter all the same information into evidence, public hearing. The applicant does a new presentation, but the appeal really isn't necessarily saying a council person thinks the commission made a bad decision, so there's no reason to come defend the decision. It is just that they believe that it is appropriate to have another hearing. So someone could decide that they would like to hear every project that's in their ward, and that is an acceptable reason to call it up. It can, and the only reason I mention that is it can have nothing to do with the board's decision, the board's process, or even the application at hand. The council was very deliberate in wanting to leave that door open for any reason to call up an application. So this commission would not have a role in the appeal. Your duties are completed by making the final recommendation or the final decision that you made.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Goodenough.
I have a question about the Commissioner's Corner. Is it going to be part of a public hearing? Is the public involved in listening to what goes on at the Commissioner's Corner, or is it an internal discussion? How does that work?
Great question. This is not like an executive meeting for legal advice. This is a public meeting and a public discussion. And if there was anyone in attendance, they would certainly be welcome to listen. That would not be a public hearing. We would not necessarily invite public comment. They would be able to listen to the conversation.
Thank you.
Great question and good point of clarification. So everybody stay focused on our topics. We can have a little bit of fun as well, right?
Keep your eye on the red live on the top left corner of the screen.
Yes, exactly. There we go. Yes, we're all YouTube stars now. Will the secretary please call the roll if there's no further questions?
I don't think, Chairman, just a point of order, I'm not sure we need to take a formal action on this discussion. But I do want to confirm there seems to be at least an interest in leaving this as part of the agenda for now. It sounded like there might be interest in having at least an opportunity to touch base and talk about things that we would then potentially bring back as a formal action item or a formal discussion item to be listed on a future agenda. And the only reason I'm kind of clarifying it in that way is Commissioner Carius had made some suggestions about adding some items to the discussion for topics, and he very clearly stated that would need to be added to the agenda, and I agree. In advance of the meeting, we would want to advertise what the commission is going to be discussing. And then it sounded like there was an interest potentially in having that kind of get an initial read from the chair to agree to add it to the commissioner's corner. And I didn't hear like a limitation on discussion timeline, but that was definitely something else that Commissioner Carius had also mentioned. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of brought the conversation back so that I knew how you all wanted the agenda to look in the future.
Yeah, so that would be more the items that would be up for discussion here in terms of us putting a vote together. I certainly am support of the idea of the commission bringing forward agenda items for this sort of fluid piece of our discussions for us to do those things. Likewise, Anna and your team, if there's any sort of major milestones on especially keynote projects or something like that that would benefit the knowledge base for the commission. I think that would be highly beneficial. And likewise, I would like us to remain somewhat expedient so that we don't get tied down in open discussions, but also have a very large sensitivity that some of the ideas that may be brought forth would warrant a slightly longer window of time to discuss. I very much support the idea of putting a time limit to it, but I think that it should not just be a set in stone. We have 15 minutes or something like that to discuss this topic, because we may be doing ourselves and the community a disservice by doing that. I'm not quite sure exactly how we would proceed with this from a formal standpoint here as far as the documentation, but I would support that we move forward. Perhaps this is a vote. Are we all in agreement for the idea of submitting items for the agenda for the Commissioner's Corner? Because otherwise I'm happy to sit here and just talk and talk and talk about where my dogs went for a walk today, those kind of things, but I don't think that's really the best use of our time. Yes, Mr. Carius, please.
I can work on some language for the bylaws just to describe the Commissioner's Corner. I think that would be beneficial just for continuity and for people in the future, just to have a brief description of like what are general items for Commissioner's Corner. And I can draft that up. I'm going on vacation to visit my mom and grandma this week, but
awesome.
I'll get some language to Christine just to see if there's that. And I noted the same thing with the presentation of staff, just a basic description for future commissioners so that they know what to expect, I think would be beneficial.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
I really appreciate the effort. Thank you. Enjoy your travels and be safe as well, of course.
No problem. Yeah, that's it. I don't think we need to vote on anything though. I think this is really just good information for Anna and everybody, and I'll work on language for the bylaws. I'm used to bylaws. If the rest of the other commissioners who've been here know, but with CUSG, I think I've gone through hundreds of pages of rules and institutional fee plans and how it's spend money. It's craziness, but I'm used to it.
Excellent. I appreciate that because you'll all quickly find that I'm quite informal, and even reading from a script is a very foreign concept for me. So please, I appreciate the support and bearing with that. So if there's no further questions or additional information.
Actually, I've got one last thing before we close it. So next time we meet, Anna, we should be in person, correct?
That's a very good question and one I do not have an answer to. So
Oh.
we met today to talk about the chambers and walk through it. Last summer, we added a second row of seats to the front of the chambers, if you're familiar with what the chambers look like, so that we could space everyone out. With social distancing not being something that is as mandated as it had been last summer, we actually think we might be taking that out and going back to a typical setup, but they're still not sure if they're going to go to a hybrid model, which would have the commissioners and staff present in the chambers and the public remote, or whether it would be fully in person. And I'm a little hesitant to say fully remote or fully in person. I'm hoping that within the next day or two, I will have firm direction and be able to tell you. I think the commission will be present on the 14th. I'm like 80% there. I think that we'll probably be in person, but we are still working out some of the challenges. So kind of bear with me. Sorry, we're adjusting a little bit.
So Anna, it's been a while since I've been in those chambers during a P&Z, thing back in the day. I'm trying to remember whether or not we would need to bring our laptop to show all these documents, or whether they would be up on a screen. I kind of thought they were up.
So we typically in the past had put things up on the screens and you didn't have to bring your laptop. However, we won't be providing paper copies. So you may want to bring your portable device just so that you had access to all of your, prior notes and copies of the plans, because we don't have the paper copies like we used to. If you do not have a portable device and you're using a desktop computer, I do have some Chromebooks that we can equipped with before we go to this model. So you can just let me know. All of our, the Chromebooks have limited abilities, but they can certainly get you to read the PDFs and get you to all of our Google documents.
And I do ask everybody on the commission, if you do need some sort of device or something, you feel free to coordinate that through me as well. And I can happily communicate that with Anna and the team so that we can make sure everybody has what they need. Looks like Mr. Carius has his hand again.
Yeah, not for the discussion, but in the spirit of Commissioner's Corner, I just wanted to kind of let everybody know I'm a bit concerned. Rental prices in the Arista neighborhood are increasing by about 7 to 10%. And so I am unlikely to be staying in this neighborhood for a $120 increase is not feasible on a graduate student stipend. So I don't know where I'll be living in the coming months. So I will keep Anna and everybody updated if I have to move. But with the increase in rent that they're expecting, I could pretty much pay to live in downtown Denver. So it's a little tough to justify. I'm a little disheartened by it, but I just wanted to let you all know that I'm currently considering a move. And so I might not be continuing on if I can't find a decent property. It's really unfortunate. They've all shot up. It's all above like $1,600 now, which is pretty crazy.
That's really daunting. I'm sorry you have to deal with that challenge.
Well, if I see something, I will let you know.
Yeah, shoot me an email if you find a property nearby. A bus route or something would be nice. I don't have a car, so that's the hard part. So
Well, our realtor did inform us that the majority of Broomfield neighborhoods saw a 7% property value increase in the month of March alone. So it's not surprising to see the people running rental properties putting their hands out and saying, give us some of that as well. But it's really disheartening as well. I agree. So especially you've established yourself in the community there for quite some time. I understand.
Yeah, let me know if you find anything. I'm looking.
Well, we just put an offer on a house. You want a basement?
Okay, roommates.
Excellent. So, Mr. Franz, you have your hand held, please.
Just a quick question for Anna. Anna, based on the number of people that signed up for Dillon Point and for that affordable housing by Skystone, will there ever be limits on the number of people that can attend the meeting in person?
That's a great question. And I think that's one reason that we are really being deliberate with our plan for returning, because we really feel like once we say we are returning to the hearings being in public, we need to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate and to be able to hear the discussions. So, but participating, being there, if we allow the public to be there, how do we make sure that everyone has the ability to participate? So, so I don't see a limit at this time on the number of people, but I think we're a little fortunate that we don't have a project like South Point or like Dillon, where we are seeing hundreds of comments come in, where we expect those types of crowds on the foreseeable agendas. So not that we won't have those projects, but we don't have them scheduled this summer. So I think that gives us a little bit of time to adapt.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Thanks.
Anyone else? Great. I declare this public hearing officially closed. We don't have any special reports scheduled for this evening. And that concludes the commission agenda for the evening. Is there any other business to come before the commission? Please raise your hand if so. Well, now I'm sad I ate my dinner in 5 minutes because we were able to get through this in such an expedient amount of time. My stomach was growling so horribly during our last call. So lesson learned from that one, but I won't be sorry about it.
I'm sorry, Chairman, may I add one more thing?
Yes, please.
I apologize, but I wanted to give you all a heads up. I completely forgot. I was just talking to our economic vitality director, and he also oversees the housing division. And he mentioned that he may be available on June 14th. That's our next meeting, to do a study session to talk about housing in Broomfield. I should have remembered it with all the discussion about South Point, but I didn't. So I wanted to flag it for you because we may have a 5 o'clock start on our first day back, potentially, at the chambers. So that would be, so right now we are aiming for Monday, June 14th, as I mentioned, as potentially in person and potentially starting at 5 o'clock with a 1-hour study session focused on housing before your regular business. There is also a concept review on Tuesday, June 15th.
Yes, thank you for distributing the calendar for all of us as well. Very much appreciate that. Obviously, I used to be very blonde. It's kind of getting darker now, but very much appreciate you sending that out to share with all of us so that we can get it on the calendar.
And I would like to say, oh, sorry, it's Kim again. I did let Nanette know that I will be out that week of our first in-person meeting, so I will not be at any of the meetings that may happen the week of the 14th.
Thanks for letting us know. So Mr. Weiss, you'll be on board. Excellent. There being no further business this evening, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you everybody for your time tonight. We'll see you all in a few weeks. Have a wonderful holiday weekend, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
See everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.